So here we are, 2024. I was running through life like I was an autopilot. Each day, bleeding into the next. Wake up, shoot, tell a story, capture a moment, repeat. I was living in the now, chasing the presents like it was the only thing that mattered. Then, in a blink of an eye, everything fell apart. 8 weeks, that's all it took for the world that I knew to implode. First, I lost my grandmother, then right behind her, my mum. The 2 women who built me brick by brick from the ground up. Growing up as an only child to a single mum, they were all that I had. It was them and me against the world. That's what I knew. That's what shaped me. But regret, man, it's a beast. It sneaks in, digs deep, and when it hits, it doesn't hold back. The pain, it felt like a freight train, unstoppable. The sadness, thick and heavy, like a fog that wouldn't lift. Life went from colour to black and white. Nothing seemed real anymore. I was untethered, drifting, watching everything I cared about fade into the rear vision mirror. And I knew if I didn't do something, anything, I'd disappear too. It's funny though, because when you're that close to the edge, that's when your instinct kicks in. That's when your bloodline speaks. I've got a nomadic streak in me, a Hungarian wanderer at heart, in my bones, to get lost when life doesn't make sense, to step into the unknown. So that's what I did. I threw myself into the wildness. I knew I had to get uncomfortable. I had to get lost to find myself again. To remember that life's got more than just black and white. It's full of colour. You've got to be willing to search for it. Part of putting myself back together is photography. It's therapy, an anchor. I'm not trying to be some globetrotter photographer, but just photography that will keep my feet on the ground. This journey starts at the airport. I got my film through customs, hand-checked, no problems. Once I got into the lounge, I dropped a roll of Mr. Negative 500T into my Samsung AF. This is my second time shooting this camera this year. After I got it back from repair, we're both on recovery. As I do when I travel, I take photos. Flight was pretty stock standard. I actually dropped my camera down the side of my seat when we landed. Getting into Singapore, I had enough time for a quick coffee and a refresh before I boarded my next flight, and to take a few more photos at the Singapore Changi Airport. Very colourful place. Then boarded my flight to KL, again with a Samsung in hand to shoot some photos out the window to see if I really captured anything good in the morning light. Pretty uneventful flight, pretty quick. Once I got into KL, I was straight into it. And boy, wasn't it a wet day. Well, I'm in KL, Kuala Lumpur. I'm going on 2 hours sleep. It is hot, it is wet, it is monsoonal outside, but I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm going to load up some Aurora 800 in my Nikon F5. For some unknown reason, I decided to bring a brick along with me on this trip. But I'm going to go out to just go and get lost, so I can go find myself, take my camera, my journal, and just see where my feet take me. Just going to pause on going out because room service just gave me some complimentary fruit. Given the substance I've been eating for the last 24 hours, some fruit does sound good. So I have a confession to make while I'm out here taking photos. I didn't end up loading the Aurora 800 today. And you'll find out a little bit later why. I was really loving the vibes in the first few hours on the ground. Wandering down all these back streets. Even though I've loaded the Nikon F5 with Aurora 800, I'm not going to shoot it today. I'm going to save it for tomorrow at the Hindu temple up in the caves. I can see sounds, I can taste sounds. I'm pretty tired, but I'm pretty wired, still pretty excited shooting Mr. Negative 500T on the Samsung AF, just getting lost in the city. It's just really good to be around a place which is completely unknown to me and just be in it and immerse in it. There's just something about the rain and Kuala Lumpur, nearly calling it a day with a quick meal and drink. Next day, and it is sunny. $500T done, $250D in. I spent a bit of time at this temple. And finally, I started shooting the Aurora 800 today. I spent a bit of time here journaling and reflecting. Off to the Batu Caves today. I might finally shoot the Aurora 800. I've taken some shots around KLCC with it early this morning, and I want to just get back out in the wild and just go check out some different spots of KL today. And today's adventure, I'm grateful for Carol. Carol lives in Kuala Lumpur, and we finally got to meet in person. She's going to show me a little bit more that I probably wouldn't have found on my own. Finally got to the Batu Caves, and boy, wasn't it heaving with excitement and people. Also forgot to mention, I loaded up my Fuji DL500 with a roll of Fuji 400. This place that Carol took us for lunch was absolutely amazing and very local. I visited a mosque for the first time. And I'm grateful for Carol for taking me to a mosque. Came across this camera shop at Central Markets. A lot of things were expensive, but it was good sightseeing in the area. Walking Kuala Lumpur with Carol, just soaking in the grit and spice of the city. No plans, just the pulse of the streets pulling us in. There was something just about the colours, the sun and the humidity this day. And finishing off the afternoon at Independence Square with Carol. I was so grateful for what I saw today, exploring Kuala Lumpur. And closing it off at Independence Square was nothing short of amazing. Signing off today with the most fiercest thunderstorm I've ever seen. And the next day, here is the Fuji DL500, one of my favourite cameras, or at least in my top 5. Out to explore more of KL. Well, I'm off to Singapore later today, and this morning I've just gone off a beaten track and gone the complete opposite direction from where I'm staying. I have no idea where I am, got absolutely no sense of direction of what I'm doing here, but I've got my camera and I'm just sort of reflecting back on my time in Kuala Lumpur, and I think it's been quite refreshing. I've had a bit of time to also reflect about myself and what I've been through. Met amazing people, spent some time with Carol, took me around Kuala Lumpur to see some amazing sights, and yeah, just really reflecting on my time. And before I go, I'm going to wander around a little bit more and take some photos. I really felt I was in a local neighbourhood. It was really nice just getting lost in the mayhem of Kuala Lumpur, just my scene. Until next time, KL, I'll keep your memories with me always. Next stop, Singapore. Now for a quick pit stop in the lounge, for a quick bite before departure, and to reflect and get ready for the next adventure. Again, no issues getting my film hand-checked. I'd finished Mr. Negative 250D, now I'm loading back in again Mr. Negative 500T for the next flight. I love looking out the window as the plane lifts off, watching Kuala Lumpur roll out beneath me. This city, with its chaos and charm, gave me more than just another destination. It became a place that seeped into my bones, one that somehow knew I needed space to sort myself out. Walking its streets, tasting its flavour, feeling the weight of its sky, it all became a kind of therapy, a way to reset and let things settle. I'm leaving, but this place has carved itself into my memories. The Samsung AF Slim, what a unique little camera. The flash, you can only turn on auto, on or red eye. There is no off for the flash. Looking out the window as I touched down in Singapore, I knew this place was going to be more than a quick drink of a Singapore sling. The first time I passed through, it was with my mum and my grandma on our way to our homeland, Hungary and Serbia, a place that carries our history. Back then, Singapore was a brief stopover, an airport layover with the promise I'd see it someday. Now I'm stepping out of transit into a city I once vowed to come back to, ready to finally experience it firsthand. I was engaged, looking out the window, really soaking in the view of Singapore for the first time. I've now arrived in Singapore. I have freshened up. I am in probably one of the smallest hotels I've ever stayed in. It's literally just a bed. Singapore is quite significant in a way because the first time that I went to Europe with my mum and my grandma, we transited through here, and I remember having a conversation that I'd like to visit here one day. So this is my first time where I haven't actually just transited through here. So I'm only staying overnight. I'm going to prep now because I'm doing a photo shoot with Claudia and one of her friends tonight around Singapore. So looking forward to that. So I'll be getting into some real shooting this time. I now need to set up my cameras and get ready. But before shooting, I had a bit of time to explore Singapore. My shoot with Claudia will be in a studio now, so a bit more time to explore. Sure got my steps up after I landed. Next stop, photography studio. In a city that wears humidity like a second skin, shooting in the quiet, air-conditioned Omina studios was nothing short of reprieve. Claudia and I go way back, so when her friend swung open the studio door for us to use for the night, it felt like we had stumbled across a little slice of serenity in Singapore. This time I left the streets behind and brought out my digital kit with a Nikon Z7 tethered to my MacBook, shooting with a Nikkor Z24-70 f2.8s doing its magic. Just a single light to the right and a few outfit and props changes throughout the shoot. So, no digital photos here on YouTube, folks. I'm keeping those photos locked up, all for social media, but mainly for Claudia so she can use. But you've got a glimmer of the film photos I shot that night, some real gems of the night. I pulled out my Minolta 115, loaded with a roll of Portra 400 and pointed and shoot, and it became my tried and true for that night. There's just something about the flash on this camera, something raw and unapologetic that I just love. Random fact, Chinese photographer Ren Hang used to shoot with a Minolta 1110. Not much of a difference between the 1110 and the 115, both raw in their photos. Shooting with Claudia, what can I say? She's a natural, slipping into each pose like she was born for it. 6 years since our last shot, but the rhythm was still there, the ease of flow, laughter, like no time had passed at all. And after the shoot, we chased down a few cold beers and letting the conversations wander into life, memories, and everything in between. One of those nights that sticks with you. A little gritty, a little raw, but absolutely unforgettable. Thanks, Claudia, for the memories and the photo shoot, wrapping it up with an early morning taxi ride through the quiet streets of Singapore. And here we are, the next morning, up early, feeling a bit rough around the edges, the kind of morning that reminds you of a good night you had. I loaded the Nikon F5 with a roll of Kodak Ultramax 400 for the streets of Singapore. I had no photo shoot today, so it was all on my own to explore. Time to hit the streets of Singapore, and the weather was on point for today. I really spent a bit of time in this temple just soaking it all in. It was quite amazing actually being inside. And I was taking in the contrast of the temple and the surrounding buildings in the streets of Singapore. Wouldn't be a trip to Singapore without visiting Marina Bay. I spent a bit of time sitting here, journaling too. And you can't forget those Mer lines of Singapore. Today's weather was really on point. And I love the random finds on my adventures. I only wish that some of the buildings at home were as colourful as this. I'm glad I didn't get to do any other photo shoots. I really got to explore Singapore at its best. Back to this spot with my Minolta and Portra 400, something about this place. I'm glad I got to witness this festival at the temple near my hotel. It was a sight to be seen. And my time was up in Singapore as I made my way to Changi Airport. My last frame before I went through security of Kodak Portra 400 and then into the lounge. Well folks, that comes the end of the journey. Still a lot more work to be done and healing to be done, but I hope you enjoyed this content with something that was a little bit different. I'm just going to enjoy my beer here in the Chris Fly Lounge before I depart back to Melbourne. Thanks for watching.